Danielle Sorsby, Head of Communications at South Yorkshire Combined Authority.
So we consulted on taking back control of our buses through bus franchising in October last year. And as you can see, our kind of key themes were around not just informing and maximum participation, but it was also around creating easy to understand content and making sure that the consultation process was accessible and was inclusive. So we were quite ambitious with this campaign, as we already knew from years of campaigning about buses in South Yorkshire that we had a population that were incensed about this topic. So we wanted to capitalise on that and use these voices to bolster our campaign and get high response numbers. And we didn't just want high response numbers because it's something positive to talk about and shout about, but also because it shows the likes of government, bus operators, and our communities actually what matters most, and it helps us as an MCA to sort of drive policy change from there, and of course funding for buses if we go into the bus franchising. We also committed to constantly monitoring the response statistics that we used to get through from the research agency every week. So this was just in case we needed to intervene at any point to make sure that we were aligned with those campaign objectives. We reassigned our budget and our efforts on Google and on Meta ads, which I'll come on to in a bit. Moving on to some of our campaign stats. As I mentioned, we intervened throughout the campaign to try to improve numbers from underrepresented communities, and this graph shows just how those interventions help. So as I said, we spotted early on that young people weren't engaging, but we also saw that our ethnic minority communities were not represented in the same way that our population is represented. So we wanted to make sure that we were proactively reaching out to these communities. So we tweaked our digital campaign. We had a look at the postcodes that we were delivering the 100,000 household leaflets to, and we were able to have some quite good results from it, as you can see. So 5% of the respondents were young people and 3% of the respondents were ethnic minority groups at the beginning of the campaign, but this increased to 13% of young people and 6% of ethnic minority groups. And our partner agency, DJS Research, confirmed that it is the highest response rate from young people that they've seen in a bus franchising consultation exercise. So we were really proud of that, because obviously young people are the ones that are going to be sort of long-term influenced by this policy. We constantly refreshed our content, which meant we weren't overusing it, and we also did a last chance push right at the end, which if you go back to the last slide, if you see those kind of 4 peaks at the end, it did impact our response numbers. These just kept going and going right to the very end. So our bus franchising consultation closed with the highest response rate per capita at the time. So we had our northern neighbours to compare ourselves to, and our response percentage exceeded them all. But not only that, the consultation went on to drive change, because in March, just gone, at our MCA board, based on the consultation process, our mayor announced that we would create a bus franchising scheme in South Yorkshire. And as you can see, we celebrated with a very giant cookie. And the final learning is, if in doubt, stick a dog on your campaign. And I know you're probably thinking, what are you on about? That is because shortly after our bus consultation, we also launched a consultation to see if residents would like to see dogs back on trams in the region. And embarrassingly for the bus franchising consultation, we got over 10,000 responses for this, which absolutely smashes out the park our bus franchising consultation.
I'm sure many of you already know John Paul Danon, who is CAN's collaboration director.
Just a quick update. CAN helps lots of public sector organisations run campaigns and to evaluate them and to optimise them. We've run over 3,000, including 200 plus consultations, yes, in transport, but also around landlord licensing schemes, local plans and so on. And our job in all of those is to ensure that we reach everyone and that everyone has opportunity to interact, and that we also help the consultations become more and more representative as they run. I think there's sometimes a perception that we have to do certain things with consultations. We have to buy or invest in a lot of paid channels that we kind of know deep down don't really work, and do a relatively small investment in things that we know do work. Um, I think it's worth checking policies and making sure you understand what is actually prescribed. And that means that you can probably do stuff that you know doesn't work, but you kind of have to do for visibility, but invest in it much less, leaving you more budget to do the stuff that does work, which means more response, more representation, more outcome. For example, by using your own estate. So using Sheffield's website advertising, or putting ads in emails, or using your own out-of-home estate means that you get free amplification, you get that visibility, you get a lot of reach, and it doesn't actually cost you anything. The kind of optimal amplification mix, you've got your owned channels, the direct mail to digitally divided households, the entire Google infrastructure, search, YouTube, the display network, Meta, as both previous presentations have mentioned, but essentially Snapchat for younger audiences. Snapchat is if you want to get representation from young people, and young people have very positive opinions about bus transport, and they also are more than happy to engage on that platform. It's really key to have them. So just thinking about sort of the marketing communications funnel, you've got your owned channels, direct mail, and awareness channels, social and Google, but then you've also got search and remarketing, really important for driving people that bounce back to surveys and getting them to complete, and then really accessible, simple user experience at the other end. That data then all needs to be fed together so that you can optimize. You can really see where the gaps are, where you need to refocus efforts, and so on. And with that setup, you can deliver, it becomes much less painful to deliver consultation amplification. And so over the period of the campaign, we can optimize and drive towards the channels and activities that are working. So at the beginning of the campaign, you're at your least efficient, and at the end, you're at your most efficient. Just some super and future tactics. We're starting to experiment with in-app alerts, so integrating into platforms like Ringo, like Smoke Free, a whole range of apps that your council or your organisation, combined authority, might promote. For example, targeting drivers about proposed road works and road changes, really efficient way of driving response. Also, when you run campaigns, consider building audiences, remarketing audiences, which can then be used for behavior change campaigns or for collaboration with other campaigns. So young audiences, then potentially connecting them with skills opportunities around potentially new routes, new career pathways. I'm talking about bus routes and career pathways. These things overlapping are particularly in combined authorities' purview, but that the audience of every single consultation can be saved and used for future. And to reinforce Danielle's point, we have seen in many consultations the uses of pictures of animals cannot be underestimated. A frog in Enfield drove over 500 responses, talking about parks and green spaces. So weave them in. It doesn't have to be the only thing, but definitely use pictures of animals. People empathize with them, and it seems to bring out the best in people as well.